One. What is up, party people? It's Dan, your basement guitar superstar. This is another episode of Creator Spotlight, and it is my honor and privilege to bring you a guitarist, songwriter, slash band leader that I'm very, very excited about. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a big hand for Darnell Cole.
Hey, how you doing? How y'all doing?
Awesome. So Darnell is the lead singer of a band called Porcelain Hill that I am very, very excited about. Their new single, Warm Days, Hot Nights, just dropped on Spotify. I'll post a link to it in the comments below, as well as links to where you can find their other music. So Darnell, for people that have not heard of you before, and this is specifically for like guitarists, because that's kind of what my channel's oriented toward.
Right.
Talk to me about how you got started playing guitar.
Interestingly, so my parents played music. They did a lot of top 40 back in the 90s and the 80s. So my dad played guitar, my mom played drums. I always thought I was going to be a drummer. They split for a while or whatever. And when I was 10, my dad had a music room and he had a little bass in there. And so I'd kind of pick it up and kind of mess with it. And he showed me a couple things. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to play bass. It's going to be fun. But then I wasn't musically educated enough on people like Phil Lynott or Mark Hoppus or Sting. So I thought if you played bass, you couldn't sing. And I kind of wanted to sing too. So I was like, I'm going to learn guitar. And I kind of like just navigated myself into it and been playing ever since.
Nice, man. What was your first guitar?
Oh man. I think I had like a Yamaha of some sort, just like a little Yamaha acoustic. And then for electric, I had an Epiphone little Les Paul with like the two cheapo humbuckers.
Oh, yeah.
And it was nice. But my first real guitar that I had, so my dad, he had like an American Standard Strat. It was all red and stuff. And I remember one of the first bands I ever had, we jammed out or whatever, and my guitar broke, but my dad came and he had one. So I got to play it, and I was like, I want a Strat. And so I was rocking Strats for a long time. Now I'm a 335 guy for sure.
Nice. Awesome. So, you started playing when you were 10. At what point did you know you wanted to, like, hey, I want to do this full time, or I want to do this when I grow up?
So I was busking for a while, which for those who don't know, it's when you play the case open and stuff, cash. I was probably like 17, 18. And because I'd written some songs on my own and was, I could play and sing a little here and there. So there was a Ralph's, which is like a Kroger for people on the East Coast. And I would sit out front and they'd let me play my guitar for tips, and I started making some good money. And I remember there was this lady and I was playing guitar and I was playing, saw her standing there and she was in her car and she was kind of vibing to it. And like, she started crying and I was like, that's weird. So she came up and she tipped me like $40, whatever it was. And I was like, whoa. And she was like, thank you. That was mine and my husband's song at our wedding, this and that. She's like, he just passed not too long ago. And, I was trying to, just connect with him. And then like, here you are playing our song. Like, you have a gift, like, don't stop. And to see her change of mood and how much that could affect her, I was like, this is something that I want to do forever. And, music, it was always a big part for me. But once I saw that I could be a part of something bigger than myself and really help people heal in times when they need it, I was sold. Absolutely sold.
Nice. So what you talked about the East Coast just now. I'm assuming you grew up on the East Coast and then moved to LA or San Diego or wherever you're at now.
No. I was born in Pasadena. I got adopted. We were all along the West Coast of California. So a lot of the Southern California and IE areas. But we've toured. We've toured a lot. So in 2016 was our first US tour, which was wild because we had like 4 dates on paper when we left, and I think we ended up playing like 30 something or 20 something. We were gone for like a month and a half for our first tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, man. That's amazing. So how did Porcelain Hill get started then? I saw your post today about that initial Facebook message. Was that between you and your drummer?
Yeah. So me and my drummer were their OGs. We used to be a two-piece. So we met in college out here, a little community college, and we both didn't really attend it. Like we went, but not really, dropped out. And I'd always bring my guitar to the student lounge, and I'd see my drummer like drumming along one day, and like they looked like real paradiddles and stuff. And I was like, "Hey, like, do you drum?" And she was like, "Yeah." And so we kind of tried to make a band, but it didn't really work at the time. So we kind of went separate ways, and we're in a bunch of different other bands. And then I was doing some solo stuff, and my homies, a friend of a friend, drummed with me at the House of Blues, and it was cool. The vibe was all right. It wasn't tight enough. So I hit Matt up. I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Do you still drum?" She's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Cool. Do you want to be like my drummer and do stuff?" And she's like, "Well, let's just jam and see how it goes, not so fast." And I was like, "All right, that's fine." And at the time I was doing primarily acoustic stuff, so it was just weird. Like I had this feeling. I was like, I need to bring my electric. I want to bring it. I want to rock out, and I did. And I was really glad I did because it just clicked. It was like all the music we made. It was the drums she played was like the songs in my head, and we've just been a band ever since.
Nice, man. That's awesome. So you guys have been around since 2016. Am I hearing that right?
2013.
2013. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. 2013 is when we started the band. Like I said, we were a two-piece for 2 years, almost three. And then on our third year, 2015, 2016, is when our bass player joined in and we first started having like a three-piece and stuff.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome. So let's talk about some of your songs, man. I really love Warm Days, Hot Nights. I think
Thank you.
that's
Thank
a
you.
standout track for me. Actually, my favorite song of yours, though, is Coming to Get You.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
talk to me about how that song came about? Because I love the vibe it has. I love the groove. Your guitar playing on it's awesome.
Thank you.
Just has that magic for me.
Got a riff to it. Well, and it's funny. It's our biggest one online. It's got like the most streams out of all our songs and everything. Honestly, that one came about. I was at a time in my life where I tried to get really meta. I don't know if it was going through like a philosophy course or whatever, but I wanted to be really meta. And for me, it was very much like going through a period of time where I felt like the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, was coming to get me and those around us. Like the world wasn't paying attention to what was going on, and like people who thought that they were something that they weren't, thinking of themselves higher than what they really were. Karma's gonna show you. It's gonna come and get you. It's gonna knock you down a couple pegs. And I kind of wanted to write a song from karma's perspective, but also, something that for those who get in, who try to hinder you, like you're not gonna hinder me. I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna get there.
Right.
And at the same time with that, and like that perspective of it, I also wanted to kind of have it mean like getting your goals and chasing them and defeating your goals, and like it's not going to get away from you. Like you're my goal, I'm gonna get you whether you want to get God or not.
Right.
So it was kind of that duality and mixing it into one. I don't know, it's how it happened.
Nice. So, how does the songwriting process work for you then? Do you come up with stuff on guitar first, or do you do lyrics first, or how does that work?
Typically it'll start off on guitar. So like even with that one, like I'll mess around on the guitar, I'll riff around, I'll find something till I find something that feels good. And I did, and I found, the da na 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 na, found the riff, and I was like, oh, this feels nice. And then I just kind of jam it out, and then I'll usually write lyrics to that. Hopefully they have some feeling, they have a power. There's usually I call it the vibe with it, And once the vibe hits, and I'm like, yes, this is a thing. Then I take it to the band, and they kind of give their critiques and like, oh, maybe we should have a stop here, or maybe we should have a thing there, or I like this, or I don't like that. Then I'll be like a rewrite sesh, and then it kind of starts to amalgamate into the finished product. You just mold it out. So there's been a couple songs that were lyrics first. I'm trying to remember what they were because it's been so long. But yeah, most of them it's guitar first. Get like a good skeleton with it.
Sure. And speaking of guitar and your playing, to me, your music has like a really good rock, funk, blues, kind of all thrown into one. Talk to me about who your biggest influences are as far as guitar players and bands and different musicians.
Oh man, there's so many, and that's the thing. A lot of times, like I remember when I was growing up, and I think too, people talk about it how like I was a '90s baby, right? So we kind of were the beginning of where it was okay to like different genres. Whereas like in the '80s and the '70s, like you were your rocker kids, and you were punk kids, and you were your new wave, and they didn't intermingle as much. So when you did and you had that blend, it really would show, as if you were a player, especially if you're a guitar player, it would filter its way in. So for me, my parents, and then my peers and all that, like there was such an abundance of music. There's so many, but for guitar specifically, top five's got to be Jimi Hendrix for sure. He's on there. Stevie Ray Vaughan, got to have both of them. Two sides of the same coin, but one's more feel, and one's more clarity and precision. Freddie King, love me some Freddie King. He's my favorite of the three Kings, because I felt he wrote better songs. BB was a really good emotive. He was very storyteller, and I think Albert King was very much a better player. But I think Freddie kind of blended those two into what I would hope to be. Plus, we got the same birthday, September 3rd.
Nice.
After those first three is where it starts to get hard, for like a top five, because I really like David Gilmour. I really love Derek Trucks. Derek Trucks is pretty much a solid 4 on there for me, but then it's like there's also Tony Iommi, and
Right.
His work with Sabbath is insane. Billy Gibbons, amazing player. His tone, like you can't really get around it.
Or his beard.
Yeah, or his beard. And his beard, if I could grow mine a little longer, I would love to. So, but I'd say to round off the top five, Derek Trucks and probably Iommi over Gilmour. Not that I don't like Gilmour, but again, I think Derek does kind of what Gilmour does, slightly better, just slightly.
Nice. That's awesome, man. So as far as music goes, what's in your CD player right now?
A lot of stuff on Spotify that I'll listen to. So I'll listen to a lot of classic rock. So Free is on there. 10 Years After. Led Zeppelin, doing a deep dive into them again. Because Zeppelin's one of those bands where you get really into them and their hits, and then you kind of migrate away, and then you got to come back in. Pretty Reckless as far as like some newer bands. Some bands we've played with. There's a band called the Howling Tides. Killer musicians. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. They're really good. Robert John and the Wreck. They got one, Oh Miss Carolina, and I forget the name of their new album. That might be the title of their new album, but good stuff on there. Just a lot of good rock and roll is really what it tries to be on my playlist most of the time. Alabama Shakes, which Brittany Howard's kind of spun off and doing her own thing, but she's amazing. Amy Montgomery, it's another good one. That's like the big one. Steve Miller Band. Definitely been getting back. Yeah, Steve Miller Band for sure.
Nice.
Great songwriter. Good stuff.
Awesome. So, you being a touring musician or whatever, I'm assuming that was your full-time gig up until COVID hit, right?
Yeah. We were doing that full time since 2016, and then COVID hit, so we had to get little side jobs right now. So I'm at Starbucks here and there when I'm not writing or recording, which is it's cool because it's something that I can work at and have a little bit of cash flow come in, but also it's flexible, so I can do music still. So.
Right. So what's your first order of business, you think, right after COVID's finally done with and everybody has the vaccine and venues are opening back up and all that?
We're going to tour for sure. So right now we've got this album recording. It's pretty much done. We got to get it mixed. We got to get it mastered and then put on the vinyl. But probably like March, April is when we're planning on releasing. When that happens, we'll probably do a couple runs to some areas that are a little bit more open. I know Texas is in our eyesight. We want to go to St. Louis. We'll see how that goes. We got some friends out that way. Colorado is another one. And then obviously Orange County as well, back over on this side. So we'll see how well we can make that happen. But as soon as it's all fully open, UK is the thing. We've done it already twice. They're ready for us. We're ready for them. Our music is just, it's better received over there. So I just really can't wait to get over there again and start rocking out.
And did I see it right on YouTube? You guys have been to France and stuff too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We've been to like 9, 10 different countries. We've been to, let's see, Czech Republic, France, Spain, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Mexico. We didn't gig in Iceland, but we did touch Iceland. And then, a lot of the continental U.S. as well. We've been to New York, Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, Ohio, Oregon, Nebraska, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. I think there's a couple other. Oh, Louisiana. So we've been around.
Okay, but you haven't been to Iowa yet, so I can see you.
No, but we're coming. We're gonna make it happen.
Nice,
We're
man.
trying to hit everywhere.
So UK, it sounds like is kind of your favorite place to play. Is that how you got hooked up with vintage guitars initially?
Yes and no. So vintage guitars, it was actually really interesting. So, which is funny because now I'm a big proponent of their BS 500, which is like their ES 335 model. So when we were touring in the USR on our first tour, I had two main guitars. I had Cha-Cha, which was an Epiphone Les Paul with the hollowed out semi-hollow Les Paul, and then I had Yume, which is what was like this franking guitar. It was like a Les Paul body with like a Strat neck. And though the red one Cha-Cha had like a better tone, when we would play, I would just perform better on Yume. Like something about the neck, I was playing really well. So I started getting back into Strats because I forget why I navigated away from them. I think it was on a whim, but I was like, oh no, Strats is where it's at. So I was looking into Strats, and I picked up a classic vibe, Squire classic vibe, and it was nice, and I liked it. And then we got into NAMM because of EV mics. They were our first endorsement, so we got in through them. And when I was there, I was just checking out, different Strat models and stuff, and I swung by the vintage booth, and I was like, oh, that's a nice Strat. And the guy, Dennis Strummer, I forget, he was like, yeah, well, it's a lot more than that, mate. It's not a Strat. It's a lot more than that. And he starts breaking it down about how it's like a Strat, but it's different and better. And I started playing. I fell in love with the guitar. I stayed at that whole booth for like the whole day. So I got their information, and Rick Taylor, who was their liaison for the U.S. distribution, we got in contact, and he sent me my first model, which was this Thomas Blue V6 is what they're called. Yeah, V6 MR-TVG. And I got that, and it was just right out of the box. It was perfect.
Is that white one with the reverse headstock on it?
They do have one like that with the reverse headstock. I had it in the normal headstock way, and then I spray painted it gold originally because I was like, I don't want to have it be the base color. I want my own guitar. If I'm going to be an artist, I want that. So had that for a while, and I had that. I mean, I still have that guitar. It's just in two separate guitars now. But yeah, and I love their company. They're a great brand. They've been very supportive of us. They really hooked us up. Every time we go to England, we do work with them, and especially for like backline and stuff. And we try to promote the brand, but much best we can, But they make really, really good guitars for affordable prices. And I mean, I've played custom shops. I've played middle line and upper end, and they really do make a quality product for an affordable price.
They do. And I got a couple of the Silver Burst ones, and it feels like I'm holding a $3,000 custom, and plays like I'm playing a $3,000 custom shop guitar. And that's the thing that amazes me about it.
Yeah, no, they've got absolute, like, their quality control that they do there is amazing. And I've got friends who've ordered some, and they've had a couple issues. Like with any company, you're going to hear bad stories and good stories. But overall, both my experience and that of more of the people that I talk to, it's an amazing experience. So.
Yeah. So you're like me, it sounds like, where you like to name your guitars. Tell me about how how you come up with the names for them. Obviously, my favorite one of your guitars is Mama J because I love pink guitars. But how do you come up with the names for them?
So I always try to let them name themselves either from a vibe that they give off or some sort of connection that I feel with that guitar. You know, when I look at the guitar, when I play the guitar, what it makes me think of. And you know what kind of inspires me with this guitar. So Mama J, the pink one, when I was a child, you know, I had a little pink guitar, and my mom gave it to me. My mom's name is Janet, and so you know I associate that guitar with her. So it was just like Mama J, I got to do it.
Nice.
You know, I have a guitar called Carol, which is the one I play now because it was a burst, tobacco burst, but it's now black with the Pan African flag on it. But you know, my grandma was a big part of my life, and she was always trying to connect me to my roots, both biologically because I was adopted, and then you know, like to like my heritage and stuff. And because it wasn't originally a tobacco burst, and you know, but now it's like this black just African thing, and that's what my grandma was, man. You know, and she was big and loud, and she had a lot of love to give, and that's what this guitar has, you know. So and it was that's for me. That's why I had to name it Carol. You know,
and you paint all of them yourself, it sounds like.
A lot of them, yeah. And if I don't, I go to my luthier, Chris Butterworth. He's got Buttersmiths, I believe is his luthier name, or C&D Guitars is another one, because he has just the guitar side and then the thing he does with his wife. Amazing luthier. He's absolutely brilliant. I've seen him fix headstocks that I thought were just bad, but yeah, if I don't paint them myself, he'll help. Or he'll do, you know, 90% of the work, and I'll help. But like the design, I usually come up with the design and like, hey, I'd like to do something like this, and together we usually make it happen. So
nice. That's awesome. So as far as your gigs and stuff go, is there any particular venue that you've played at that you've had kind of a weird experience, or any places you've been to where you're like, oh my God, this place is going to be terrible, but it ended up being awesome?
There's been a couple. I remember there was one time we were in Alabama, and you know, everyone on the West Coast, in the Southwest Coast, gives the South, you know, a lot of guff, a lot of time. They're like, oh man, you go out there, it's a bunch of hillbillies and da da da, and that's not the case. You know, but it was our first time out there, you know, and like I'm black, our drummer's, you know, gay, and our bass player looks like he's Middle Eastern and stuff. So we're a little bit on our toes. But we go into this bar and we walk in, and it's like Confederate flags everywhere, and like there's like super country music playing, and it was like the record stopped and everyone just looks at us walking the door, and I was just like, howdy, how you doing, you know? And I was like, oh, this is gonna be weird, but whatever, we're gonna gig it. And we start playing, and you know, music connects everybody, you know, no matter where you're from, what you do, like music brings people together, and that's music, food, and love, man. Those are the three things that no matter what, like you can find a connection there and see that we're all just people. And that gig for me, like I'll never forget that, because that's what that was for sure. It's one of our best gigs we played. Some guy came and was like, "You guys did an amazing job. I love the way you play Stevie Ray Vaughan." Tipped like $60-$80. Like it was a good time. So you know, it's definitely happened.
Nice, man. You see what I had a bunch of questions wrote down for you. What's kind of your 5-10 year plan, do you think?
Get famous, have babies, and tour. No, I don't know. You know, I used to have one. I used to say, like, when I was 25, I was like, all right, when I'm 27, if we're not here, I'm just gonna focus on being a paramedic. And I got to 27, and then it was like, man, when I'm 30, if I haven't made it yet, I'm gonna do this. And now I'm 30, I'm about to be 31. You know, I think in 5 years, I'd like to still be doing music full time and earning a living doing it. If I'm doing that, I'm winning. So that, for me, that's my plan. That's my forever plan.
Sure. So on this new record, is there like a certain theme you're going for, or any topics you haven't addressed yet that go through your music that you're wanting to cover, or any styles of music that you haven't thrown in that you're thinking about, or?
Kind of. It's definitely a deeper album. So our album See It Now was very much like, they were songs that, you know, I primarily did most of the writing with, and then we came together and wrote more, obviously. Cause I don't write any of the drums, I don't write any of the bass. Like, that's for sure all them, you know. But like lyrics wise and the feel, for that album, I was a lot of what I had before, and then we shifted that into into the band environment. And there's a lot of songwriting there, but the musicality wasn't there. I know for me, I was very limited as a musician, far below my rhythm section. My rhythm section, they're much more dialed musicians than myself, especially at that time. And then Vintage came out, and Vintage, you know, we collabed a lot, and the music was a lot better. There was some good songs songwriting wise for me, in my opinion. I don't think the songs songwriting wise were as strong as they could have been, because I was more focused on the music side and like trying to do that. And that's not to say that there weren't good songs on that album. I'm proud of what we put out there. But comparatively with those two, I do think Vintage is a much more musical album, whereas See It Now is a much more like lyrical album.
Sure.
This one, I think, is the first time where we're putting our true best foot forward. It's got a lot of good lyrical content. It's got a lot of good musicality that you can vibe to. And the main focus of this whole album is just like, it's who we are. It's who we are as musicians and what we're about, you know. And there's not a theme. It's not a concept album, you know. But it very much is like, if you want to know what Porcelain Hill is and sounds like and does, like, this is going to be the album for it. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised, because for the longest time, our live performance quality improved, but our online and our recordings did not, because we were gigging all the time. We weren't recording, we weren't writing, we were just gigging.
Right.
And with this Rona and everything, we've been able to sit down and really dial in and refine our catalog and what's out there. And I'm even more proud of this than I was of any of our other releases.
So when you think about playing guitar, Darnell, and this is for, you know, beginners or below average guitarists like me, you're obviously a really good guitarist, at least in my eyes anyway. Do you have like a certain practice regimen you go through every day, or like, do you have something specific you're working on right now, or are you doing finger exercises?
Yes and no.
Or what does that look like?
So for me, it's all about where you want to go and assessing what's best going to help get you there. So, you know, when you're first learning guitar, you have to know about the guitar. You have to know the different pieces, how they interact with it, what everything's called, and how to make sound come out of the instrument. Like, when I give lessons, the first thing I give is like, okay, this is a guitar. This is how you make sound come out and get your dexterity up. Once you know how to make sound come out, there's only a couple shapes you really need to know. You know, your bar chords and like a couple of the open chords and whatever. Everything else, like the internet, can teach you everything.
Right.
And once you get to that point where you can, you know, feasibly make sound come out of the instrument more or less in the way you want to, it's really just ironing out the parts of it that you're not familiar with, and the territories you're not familiar with, you know. I have a friend, Gino Matteo, who's an amazing guitar player. That guy is fire. And, you know, I sat down with him a little bit, and, you know, we were shedding, and, you know, he said the greatest thing, which is like, you know, your right hand is as important as your left hand. You know, you got to focus on how you're picking and like all these other things. And it's, you know, don't be afraid to mess up, you know, things like that. Like, that's where learning guitar really is. It's not in, you know, oh, I know these scales and oh, I know these chords, and like that stuff helps. And like knowing theory helps, but it's communication. Knowing theory is the same as knowing grammar. You know, just because you know the grammar doesn't mean you're going to be an eloquent speaker or, you know, an amazing speechwriter. You know, writing speeches and connecting with people and speaking fervently, it's the same thing with music. So for me, the biggest practice that anyone can do is to play. You know, I go on and shout out to Elevated Jam Tracks on YouTube. You know, I turn that on and I'll just jam to it, and I'll try, and sometimes I'll record myself, sometimes I won't, but I try to do different things and not just noodle and be like, okay, today I'm going to work within this mode, or I'm going to work with just these strings, or I'm going to work on sustain, or I'm going to work on playing on an odd time, you know, or do different keys and different things to just get comfortable with the instrument. Because I feel like our job as a guitarist, you know, our job is, or as a musician in general, is to move people with what we say musically, right?
Right.
We're wielders of emotion, and figuring out the best way to do that is to what you have in your head, what the emotions you have in your head, and the things you feel and the things you hear, transposing those on the guitar. So the better you know, like they call it ear training. If you can hum a melody and then play that melody, that's going to help you immensely more than knowing a bunch of modes. Because at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is get the sound and the melody up here out here. So it's just honing that skill. That's the way I see it.
Right. Right. You're speaking my language on that one for sure. What's your rig look like right now?
My rig is fun. So I'll grab one. I'll grab the guitar real quick.
All right.
Be right back. Go get it. Put it down here. All right, so we've got Carol, my VS 500A from Vintage Guitars, of course, with the custom paint job. And I've got the Wilkinsons in it, and they're the ones off of their one of their V100s. I want to say it's their lemon drop one. It's their one that's kind of like the Slash LP model, similar to that.
AFD or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit hotter, but I like them in this because they're a little bit less sensitive to the noise, even though they're higher output.
Oh, sure.
So they make less noise than the ones that were on there. And I basically run that through a Dunlop mini tuner. And I have a Dunlop mini wah that runs into my Octavizer, the 3 from Boss Audio. I have a Boss Octave 3, or maybe it's the 5. 3 or the 5. From there, that runs into an Ibanez tube screamer.
Okay.
Classic pedal, can't go wrong with that. And then that runs into, so there's another pedal I have. Or maybe that's it. That might be it, actually. Yeah, because I'm not running my compressor anymore, and I'm not running my reverb anymore. All of that runs into the Super Blues King 12. So I have that, which is 1520 watt amplifier. And the speaker on that is actually unplugged from it, unless I'm rehearsing. And I run a speaker cable into a Blackstar 2x12 cab. So I'm running the 20 watts through a 2x12, and then I get to push it a little harder. Blackstars, they're really good. I think they use greenbacks for a lot of their stuff. I could be wrong. Someone out there on the internet, let me know. But I really like their speakers that they use. And that's what I'm running right now, and I'm really a fan.
Do you have an endorsement with Supro then, or?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an endorsement with Supro then? Because I know they're owned by John Hornsby SKUs as well, aren't they?
Correct. So I'm in the process of trying to make that more of a thing. But yeah, when we were out in England, the last tour I used a Supro Neptune for a lot of the tour, and I fell in love. Supro is a great company. Again, not only is it a great platforming amp, if you're going to run it clean and use more of your pedals to get your dirt and your sounds and your tones, but even their cleans and their dirts, they're solid amps. Solid amps. The Blues King 12 is probably one of my favorite amps that I've owned. When you're running it through its single 12 speaker, it does break up a little too soon, a little too much.
Sure.
So, it's really a low volume amp at that point. But when you run it through a bigger cab, give it a little bit more to breathe, it's a very, very pretty amp, very powerful amp. Super all the way. Very much fan.
Nice. So when you're going to get new guitar, I'm assuming Carol's fairly new, right? Within the last year or so.
Yeah, yeah, this last 2020.
Okay. So when you go to look for a new guitar, like what are you looking for? Are you looking for a certain neck shape or a certain sound or
A little bit of all of it. So one is like for sure necks. I like chunky necks more than not.
you and me
Um,
both?
but there's something to be said too for like some of the slimmer ones, like my Epiphone CC. She got a thinner neck, but it still plays nice. For me, it's playability. You know, if I sit down with it and I start strumming away and I start doing stuff, how does it feel? Does it feel natural? Does it feel like I'm having to work to hit the notes that I want, or does it just kind of flow through it? You know, and I mean, there's something to be said for a good fret job and polishing and all that other stuff, but some guitars just have the magic, some don't. How it sounds acoustically, unplugged, even with the electrics. You know, how does it ring? How does it resonate? How does that sound? Does that speak to what's his name? The captain and Anderton, and all them. They
Oh, Pete, Danish Pete.
Danish Pete. That sometimes they talk about the smell of a guitar. There's some truth to that. You gotta know like what's it emanate, and then lastly, when I plug it in, just how it feels under my fingers and how responsive it is. And when those things, all kind of work out and balance each other out, then I'm good. Like, Carol, my biggest thing with Carol is sometimes like it's too responsive. Like I'll play with the pick and it's just like, oh man, you're gonna just yell and just bam, and I just need you to be a little softer, But it's forced me to become a better player and be more conscious of that and really focus on my right hand and what I'm playing there. CC is the opposite. CC sounds real good, especially soft, but when I go to dig in, it's not always there. But that's, pickup height can change that. Type of pickups you have. So there's, all that. But what you can't change on a guitar is the way it feels when you hold it, the way it feels when you play and you strum something right. So for me, that's overall biggest thing. If you're ever shopping for a new guitar, sit down and play it and see how it feels. And if you're like, this just feels good, get it. And if not, keep on moving.
Awesome. Um, if you could play with any famous musician, sorry to kind of change direction.
You're good. You're good.
If you could play with any famous musician that's still alive on your album, who do you think you would have as a guest?
Derek Trucks for sure. And I think maybe I want to say Adam Urey. I might be butchering his name because I always forget famous people's names, but the guy from Panic at the Disco.
Okay.
Yeah, his vocal range is just phenomenal, and you could just get some real cool Queen vibes going on with that. And then with Derek, like he's just such an amazing player to do some call and response with that. That would just be amazing, absolutely amazing.
Have you ever reached out to Derek Trucks about it?
I mean, I've tagged him here and there or something, but never like in a serious way, I guess. But who knows? One day, if it all works out, I would love to be like on Joe Bonamassa Blues Cruise, or at Bonnaroo or Red Rocks or something, and just kind of guest and jam together. I think that would be really cool.
Awesome. So for new guitarists that are just getting into playing live and stuff, what piece of advice would you give them as far as like booking shows or finding a band or doing all that?
Be tenacious. You gotta be hungry, you gotta want it, and you gotta kind of figure it out. A lot of times it's as simple as, don't be timid. A lot of bands are, when they first start out, it's like, oh, I don't want to ruin my chances. Like, it's a dive bar in some city, wherever. Like, you can definitely be, a jerk and go in there and like, hey, I'm so and so for this band. You're gonna pay us this, and then like, yeah, that'll act you from a lot of different venues. But in general, if you just go in and you're like, hey, I'd like to speak to whoever does the booking, or how can I get booked here? I want to book my band, and just be, ask questions. They'll tell you eventually who it is or what email you gotta send. Send that email. Follow up with that email. Follow up with a third, fourth, fifth, 10th, whatever. Be persistent. Same thing with finding a band. You go to where musicians are. Go to good shows. Go to music stores. Go to jams. You can find out where jams are, which between Facebook and Instagram, it's not hard per se to kind of find that stuff. Go there and jam and put yourself out there. Be vulnerable. One, nobody's perfect, but two, no matter how bad you do at some jam, no one's gonna really they might remember, oh, there was this guy that was so bad there, or whatever, but it's gonna get you out there, it's gonna get your chops up, and it's gonna help you grow as a player. So yeah, put yourself out there and be tenacious about it.
Awesome. I got the reason I'm asking, I'm kind of trying to mentor this. He's a younger kid from Baltimore area. His name is Paul Diallo. I don't know if you've seen Pauly Boy Blues at all on Facebook.
Yes, I've seen that before.
He's an amazing talent guitarist, but he doesn't have a band. He's just played in his basement for the last couple of years. And, guys like that, I'd like to be able to pass that type of information on to him. And so.
Yeah, we're at the age, I guess we've always been, but it shows more so now with the advent of streaming services. Being talented isn't just because you're really, really good doesn't mean people are going to see you, doesn't mean people are going to hear you, doesn't mean people are going to support you in and of itself.
Right.
So, you've got to develop a tenacity and a way to be no, you're going to hear me, you're going to see me, you're going to vibe with this because the market is there. There's tons of people who will support your music no matter what it is. There's people who I don't know, underwater synth, industrial, they play instruments underwater and it's this whole thing. And there's a crowd for them, but you have to get exposure to get out there. And there's this big joke about venues paying bands and exposure, and yes, there's definitely a disparity going on, and venues need to pay their musicians for the work because it is real work. And it's well, you're only playing here for an hour or 3 hours, and it's yeah, but you don't understand all the booking and all of the the time it goes into learning the instrument to perform well for that 3 hours. There's a difference in quality. Pay your musicians, the quality improves. But all that aside, there is something to be said for exposure, and it is important. And half of the exposure you get is from how hard you push and how hard you drive to get out there and be in people's faces. And I think a lot of bands and a lot of new artists don't hear that enough. They just think oh, I'm just going to play and be good and someone's going to find me and it's going to work. And that's not how it is. You literally have to go and put yourself in front of this crowd.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, I don't really have anything else for you. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about at all musically or about the new record?
Yeah, I would say, for all those listening out here, one, keep supporting podcasts like this, videos like this, and musicians like me. It helps keep music going. So thank you, for tuning in and doing that. Secondly, check out our album when it drops. It's going to be March or April, but if you follow us at porcelainhill.com, you follow us on Instagram at Porcelain Hill, Facebook.com/Porcelain Hill, you name it.
I'll post links to all those in the comments too, so those of you watching know where to go to find Darnell's music. So,
yeah, that's us, man.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, man. This has been really fun.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll let you know when it's going to publish. I'm based on when the episodes come out. Usually, I'm thinking probably mid to late March sometime.
Perfect. That's good timing.
And I'll make sure that if your record's out by then, I'll make sure I say that in the description or whatever.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, man. You have a good one.
You have a better one.
All right.